Hello, Opalphiles! When I was learning how to soak my reed and tune my first notes, I didn't understand at all what it meant to be in minor tonality. And even when I learned about minor scales, it wasn't in a particularly useful way. And if there's one thing that drives me absolutely crazy, it's... Is it wet socks? No, actually. Risky behavior around alligators. What? No. I've got it. It's the 94 Bulls. How dare you, sir? No, it's not understanding musical concepts in a pragmatic way. Pragmatic? More like dramatic. Roll the intro. A really common way to introduce minor tonality is by just playing a scale. And so the way that I was taught was to play an F major scale. But to start on a D and just play the exact same thing. And there you go, champ. That's D minor. Delicious. Now this might be good on a technical level as far as getting the notes to be even and getting control of the fingers and air, but it's not particularly useful comprehension-wise, or does it help me apply minor tonality to music that I'm reading or music that I'm hearing. To be fair, it's really hard to introduce the concept of tonality in general, let alone minor tonality, on a melodic instrument by itself. But that won't stop me from trying. So to me, the most obvious way to understand minor tonality is by transforming a familiar tune. So let's first examine a tune that we know in major tonality. And now we'll hear the same tune, but in minor. Now that's a spicy twist. Now, if you've made it this far, you clearly want to understand what's going on. So I've made a PDF that you can download for free on opalphiles.com with a link in the description. You feel free to use that to follow along, practice on developing your own skills, or even give out to your students so that they can master the ins and outs of minor land. If you're able to really think and meditate on tunes that you know well and transform them from the major mode into the minor mode, you really start to gain an intuition of what kinds of things are appropriate in minor tonality and what kind of things just aren't likely to show up. When you understand these patterns, you're unlikely to ever hear music like this again. I have one flat, but this crazy accidental came out of nowhere. Okay, so to turn a tune from the major mode into the minor mode, we have two different techniques. But I bet that they're secretly the same thing, right? Yes, but they are from two distinct angles of attack. The first way is to simply find all the instances of the third scale degree of the scale. Might sound a little confusing, but all we're doing is we're taking the third note in the major key and we're lowering it a half step. So if I'm playing in C major, and every time we have E natural, we're going to turn that into E flat by lowering it a half step. Now you kind of have to use your judgment after this point, because most 99% of the time, the sixth note of the scale, in this case A flat, or A natural, will become lower to become A flat. This particular tune doesn't have one, but let's examine one that does. So we might take the major version of Twinkle. Now remember, The E's are already flat, that's a given. But we're going to take that A natural and also lower it. And when you're able to transform your tunes this way, it might seem a little artificial. Just remember to be singing along in your mind and with your voice so that you're really internalizing the concept. Now, the last oddball is the seventh note of the scale. Oftentimes, in order to make minor tunes have a sense of resolution, you're going to keep the seventh note the same as in the major mode. In this case, it's going to be B natural. Although other times you may have to lower it a half step to B flat, and you're just going to have to use your intuition at that point to decide. Often the seventh scale degree is only present in the harmony anyway, and if that's the case, we will often use the race seventh scale degree, so B natural. Wait, 3 flats? That seems like E flat major. That's right, and you touched on the second, and in my opinion, easier way to think about it. We've introduced 3 possible flat notes into our tune, and that's the same as having a key signature. And when we have 3 flats, we can think of it as E flat major. But instead of having everything based on E flat, we're going to think of E flat as Do and base everything Do, La, base everything on C, which would be La. So if we think of our tunes based on La, we can now shift the whole tune down and it becomes easier to create the minor mode this way. Now again, you may have to make some modifications to make the resolutions feel correct, but if you keep everything relatively the same, the harmonies will guide you into the correct notes to use. And if we shift that 2 notes down in the key, instead of starting on E flat, I'm going to go 2 notes from E flat to D to C and start on the C and keep the key signature the same, so 3 flats. And that version of the tune is especially good for practicing your left hand pinky notes, so that's good. Luckily, most American folk songs stay from Do and move up from there, so you don't often have to do many adjustments in the melody. But you may have to just use your ear and find what you need to change for the harmony parts to make sense. Another useful skill to become familiar with the minor mode is to just learn a tune that is originally in minor. There's tons of folk songs like this, and if you had a good elementary education, you surely heard some at some point. So just kind of review songs that you know, or ask a friend or teacher to just give you one. One of my favorites is the Jolly Miller because it already includes the 7th scale degree. And the 7th scale degree in this case is not in the key signature. So it's a great example to kind of know and practice in different keys to really understand how your scales work. Okay, great. So now I know some minor songs and I know how to turn major songs into minor songs, but I can't navigate particularly well technically through harder music or etudes, even now that I understand this. Don't even worry about it, comically unaware self. There's a whole nother video describing how to work on the technique of practicing minor scales. So you can check that out, the link is in the description below.